Hello, Lynn Watts here with Wyatt the Wonder Dog Books, and today I'm going to talk about something that not just children, every human has to learn to do, and that is adapting to change. And if you think about it, probably children adapt to more change than we do as adults, because often as adults, we're able to establish our routines and, have control and some semblance over our lives and maybe, not move around about so much. But children are constantly adapting to all kinds of change. And one of those changes, of course, is starting a new school year, being in a new classroom, making new friends, meeting a new teacher. We could go on and on about everything that's new about school. So in this video here, what I want to do is talk about some of the ways that we can help them adapt. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you about some resources that you can use in lessons or even individually in working with kids and talking about adapting to change. So the first one, of course, is a book that I wrote, Wyatt the Wonder Dog Starts Kindergarten, which, of course, is a big change for many children. It's the first time that they start in school, if they haven't been to a preschool or perhaps a daycare. And in any case, it's often their first encounter with a school that's more of a school system. And so this book is a lot about being a little uncomfortable about what's upcoming, wondering what it's going to be about, and then learning how to adapt to it. And of course, it has a happy ending. However, kindergarten, of course, is not the only, it is a big step, but it's not the only adapting to change that elementary students have. And another book that I used a lot, which I think is a great book for kids, and it's also an awesome book for adults, is Who Moved My Cheese? Of course, it was originally a book for adults, and then they made it into a children's book, and they've done a wonderful job. It's by Spencer Johnson and Christian Johnson. And not only is it a good story, it's great. You could use it in fifth grade. You could use it in middle school for that matter. Because it is not only a really good story and it goes through a lot about change, but it has different characters, and you could easily role play the different perspective of the different characters and how they cope with change in a variety of situations. So not just looking for cheese. And then, of course, if you want a lesson plan all about adapting to change and how to do that sort of lesson at the beginning of the year, I'd recommend my elementary school counselor book of lesson plans, volume 2. And it lists not only these two books, but a couple other books that you could certainly use about adapting to change. It has a lesson plan, as always aligned with ASCA standards, closing activity materials, essential questions, and activities for all different grades, including a reflection journal that you could have older kids fill out in terms of what they learned from the class. So that is in my volume 2 lesson plan book. And just along those same lines, there's also a lesson all about teaching students the role of the counselor, which again is the sort of thing you're going to do at the beginning of the year. So the benefit of that lesson plan book is that it is done in a calendar fashion so that you can go through it and identify, the different topics for each month, and then it has a lesson plan for that. All right, so let's talk about adapting to change and typical life changes that students encounter. So it's not just starting school, it's things like moving to a new home. Invariably, you're going to have some students who are new to the area, new to the school. Excuse me, they may have just moved. And I would often do a new student group for those students who move into the area, not for every student, because everybody's new in their own way, right? There may be changes in friendship. There may be family changes, divorce, remarriage. There's changes in academic expectations. So moving from grade to grade, different things are expected from students. So that's a change. Students can experience a loss in their life. And you might, of course, deal with that in terms of a grief group, but loss of a pet, even loss of a loved one. And then each year brings on increased responsibility and independence. So, like I said, kids especially experience change. So, how do we help them adapt to change? I'm going to give you some strategies, some things that you want to teach. Number one is naming the change. So, recognizing that it is a change and that it does require some new skills, some adaptability, and so on. So, I think it helps students when you name it. You don't expect them just to recognize it without talking about how this is a change. And then, of course, part of that is normalizing the feelings that go along with change. So, normalizing perhaps a little anxiety, maybe excitement. It doesn't have to be a negative sort of feeling. It could be curiosity. There are a lot of different feelings that go along with change. So, normalizing those feelings and talking about them. A third thing to do, which I think is helpful in any situation like this, is helping students understand what they can control. And of course, for children, their area of control is much smaller than our area as adults. So we want to encourage them to ask themselves things like, what can I do to help myself right now? All right. How can I help myself adjust to this new class, this new teacher? And what stays the same even when things change? Now, that's often a really good question. So, what stays the same? Maybe what stays the same is the support of my parents or my caregiver, or maybe the support of perhaps siblings, boost each other up with this, or friends. So, what does stay stay the same? What can they expect to stay the same? We want to encourage flexible thinking, and we might also call this growth mindset, I think. But many times, as an individual, we say those things to ourselves, like, this is going to be hard, this is going to be tough, and maybe we pull that information from things people have told us. So maybe our teacher last year said, when you get to the next grade, they're not gonna baby you like I have, or they're not gonna. And so student moves into that next grade feeling nervous, and also with some expectations like, this is really going to be hard, I'm not going to like it, so on. So we want to encourage flexible thinking, and perhaps instead of saying, I'm not going to like it, it might be, this is going to be harder, but I can handle it. All right. So there's that additional piece. Or I like challenges where things are hard. Again, you're building that growth mindset. So helping them to think differently. And then finally, seeking some support. So helping them identify where they can get support, where they've had support in the past. That might be you as a counselor. It might be talking to their parents about it. It might be talking to a coach about it, or a grandparent. It could be, a variety of different people that give them support, but identifying where that is. So those are all ways that we can help students adapt to change, and how we can teach it as an overall lesson, because every student coming into the school at the beginning of the year is adapting in some way to change. So I think it's a very useful lesson to do at the beginning of any school year. And if you need some resources for it, you can check out some of the books that I've mentioned. So as always, I want to thank you for listening, and thank you for all the wonderful work that you do to empower children and help them adapt to change.